Okay, you may be wondering what happened last time. Well, after we put the shells together, I opened it up like this and noticed that the strife was tipped down just a hair. Where I wanted it here, it was here, which doesn't seem like much of a difference, but especially considering where we were at with the barrel, since the strife barrel was going to exit at the bottom part of the Centurion barrel, you're really kind of pushing your luck as it is, technically. And if this strife would be facing down just even a tiny bit, you'd run the risk of bouncing the dart off the bottom of the barrel. If it was facing up just a hair, we want it dead on as good as possible, but if anything, I'd rather favor up just a hair. Just that way you're shooting up higher into the barrel and running less chance of having issues. And I also thought that even if functionally it worked, it'd be kind of goofy if the mag looked like it was angling back just a hair. Which, I don't know, I guess that might be okay. I figured if anything, if it was angled forward a little bit, that might be kind of cooler looking. But again, we want as straight as possible. So, one thing I was looking at, we have this part of the guide where the strife trigger is going to run. We have a nice straight line that we know needs to be parallel to the rest of the main lines here. We also have a rib here at the top of the magwell that we can align with the top of the jam door area here to kind of double verify, so to speak. And I think the problem was, it's just this little bit, this little lip on the battery door was just riding on top of this ridge here from where the priming slide is. And I think it just wanted to, it sat good until you squeeze the shells together, and then it'd pop up just a little bit and drop into the slot. So I think I'm going to just kind of kiss that off just a little bit. Since we don't have that issue up here, it's just back in here where this ridge is. So I'm going to just ease this guy off. In fact, I think I'll just snip him off and then clean up what's left with the file. And then we're going to try to stick it back together, which we've lost some ground, but not too much, since we still have this shell is all in one piece here, these pieces, this guy here. So really all we have to do is drop the strife back in, make sure it's really aligned this time, and glue it, and then we should be off and rolling again. And from here on out, it should be pretty smooth sailing. I mean, the barrel has a designated spot where it slips in, so I'm not too concerned about that. The Mega Magwell pieces pretty much slip in and kind of lock into place a little bit. It's just a matter of getting the fit, kind of in the orientation right. But as far as alignment, I think we're kind of in the home stretch, technically. I'm not going to get too cocky about that, but I'm going to hope. So, oh yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah. In fact, that just fits in a lot more positive anyway, so I'm happy with it. All right, so I think while we're at it, I'm going to clip just a little top off here so we have this nice definite line to just kind of ensure that everything is as good as we hope it is. Oh yeah, that just feels a lot better going in there. I'm a lot happier with that. What's up? You're okay. Go sit in your chair. Go sit in your chair. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'll get the hot glue gun plugged in and we'll stick this back together. Verify a couple times, double check inside and out before we add more DevCon, and hopefully we'll be off and rolling again. Just tacking this little bit in here in place just to keep it from moving around and hopefully causing less issues. We'll come back after we've DevConned the outside. We'll go ahead and add a bunch inside just since we have, it's a kind of a shell inside a shell. I want to make sure all the rest of these areas are supported just to avoid any moving around in the process of either finishing the build or just in working on it later or even just playing. I don't want the insides rattling around or just having potential for coming loose or just making noise or anything. So I want to make sure this guy stays in place while we're doing the rest of the job, then we'll come through and reinforce everything again after it's all cured. Okay. Gotta be a little careful because it looks like this glue didn't stick here, so that's annoying and concerning. So let's go ahead and just tear right into this because everything else is looking good. Of course I said that last time. Well, looks like things are looking gooder. How's that? That's all she wrote. Put just a little weight on that just to kind of help ensure that the shells are held together. Now this isn't DevCon, this is the Ace store brand equivalent, but this is my second go-to. If I can't get DevCon, then I've tried a bunch of other brands, and this is I've had the best luck with the Ace plastic repair epoxy. Pretty much the same. Comes in the same packaging, pretty much. Mix is the same. Pretty much everything about it is the same except for the label. So this is one of those instances like we talked about before where one tube has an air pocket, the other side doesn't, so you get a big pile of the one and not of the other. So, dang it. So we're going to take about that much and move him up here out of the way, so we can keep the 50-50 ratio. Okay, now we'll sit and let that guy cure a little bit before we get too crazy. We'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. A little concerned about how this came out. Being a little stiff. I wonder if it's getting old. Had that problem a while back where just the material itself was old and didn't mix right and wouldn't cure. So here's hoping it seems to be mixing all right. Maybe it's just cold because it is awful chilly out here in the shop. So we will hope for the best. It's feeling pretty good. We'll let that cure. We'll pluck out the glue, do one more coat, and then we get to move on. Okay, well that's curing. I think I'm going to go ahead and start kind of doing some rough fitting here. We need to shorten this up a ways to get around this bump. Let's go ahead and zoom in just a little. Oh, is that better? So we need to pull this up just a hair, just so it's not hanging down quite as far. So I'm going to just trim up the top of this a little bit just to bring it up, and actually that'll help this line here kind of flow into this one a little better. In fact, I think that ought to be just about right. Just trim off just a little bit. Then we'll just rough it in with this guy. Actually, I don't think it'll take much more than that. Which, there again, I was expecting to take more material off in order to get it to fit in there, but it looks like I won't have to. So there again, don't always be conservative with your cuts when you're trying to fit stuff, because sometimes you may feel like you're a mile away from getting things to fit, but sometimes it's just removing the right amount in just the right spot that'll cause things to just drop together. For the heck of it, plug this guy out. Guys like that. Okay. This guy's still way up. Just looking. Instead of trying to take off of both sides like I was originally planning, I wonder if I can just, I don't know. I could probably get away with cutting off just one side, but that puts a seam really close to these little whoop-de-doo details. And it'd be nice to preserve those, so instead of having the seam right next to, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just trim them off both. That way it should give us a little room to delicately dress the joint up and keep that looking nice. Otherwise, if we end up goofing up the details here, then we might as well like fill it in or cover it with something. So I'm hoping to maintain the details, just kind of, because it is part of the Centurion aesthetic, and the idea behind this build is to basically take the coolness and everything of the Centurion and just shrink it down into a more compact size. So okay, let's see, that guy goes. Trim some of the junk off the back just to help it lay flat. You know, I was just gonna clip that off, but I think I'm gonna be a little more civilized and use a saw, hopefully get a nice straight edge. Now, because this is going to be kind of a interesting joint, I'm checking the cut with my square, putting on the bottom that we know is straight, and just verifying that that's pretty good. Pick up just a hair more on the bottom. And that'll just help the final seam look a lot better when we start sticking things together. That was pretty good. And because we're trying to preserve the details there, I'm made the cut fairly close, but I didn't want to get too close to these guys, so I'll cut off a little bit more on this side, and then we'll size it up again, and hopefully we'll be close. it is. It goes, that goes like that. So you need to cut off about that. Again, this is me not measuring. So if you're a measurer and you know how to measure and it works for you, well, go nuts. It never works for me, so I just kind of eyeball and guess and then eyeball and guess and then check. And so not scientific by any means. So, which maybe that's the reason we had the issue we had yesterday. Oh well. Okay, and that says I'm way long on the top, so we'll. With my luck, I'm going to get a nice edge, and then we're still going to be a mile off. Actually, I think that's pretty close. So we do want it a little wider to get that whole flared thing. So I think I'm going to go with that. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and stick that together so we can kind of get a better idea of what all we're working on for fitting everybody else. So, which that's, put this down where you can see it. Well, that's a little better context of what's going on. Still need to make our decision here, which I suppose when I had these shells apart again, I should have trimmed off this little bit that we talked about. Oh well. I'm gonna put just a slight bevel on the back side of the joint, so technically it'll fill a little bit with the DevCon when we do that. It'll make it a little stronger, because if it's just a straight butt joint, in order to get the joint tight, you're gonna squeeze out most of the adhesive. And since, well, I guess we could just put it flat and it would gush out the back, but this will put a little more support right at the joint. So, not super crazy, just a little bit. I don't know if you can see. Whoa, where are we at? Where are we at? Oh, that's nice. I don't know if you can kind of see. But basically, I just took a bit of an angle. Whoa, where are we at? There, like that. Whew, what is stuff? Bit of an angle this way, off the back side of the material. Just that way, when you have the two pieces together, you have a bit of a trough that you can kind of fill. What is it? I don't know if you can tell. If you can tell, cool. If not, well, that's cool too. We'll move on. I think I'm going to put just a little bit of tape on the front side just to kind of help. Just help the two pieces hold together while we're working. Otherwise, you have two little independent guys slipping and sliding, and it'd be less than good. Let that cure for just a bit.